Hey everyone, welcome to the Learning to Birth webinar series. Akasha here. And if you've already checked out the interview with Heather Bruce under the healer section, you already know all about her. I really recommend you go check that out again if you haven't already. But Heather Bruce is back here again to talk with us today about, all things about cesarean, breech, feedback, everything really, really exciting. So it's going to be a really in-depth discussion today. Probably check out her other interview first to really get a grip on where we're going to go. And I'm going to hand it over to Heather to really, take us where she wants to. Hey, Heather.
Thank you. Now, I had a C-section. I didn't intend to have a C-section. I had signed up as what I thought was going to be my last child, and he was, to have a home water birth because I decided I wanted to do it properly at the end. Okay, so there I am back in New Zealand. I was going to do it in the bath. I had the best one that I could find. She was a lovely woman. Everything was all tracking fine. And then it wasn't, because mid-step, my ankle gave way and I ended up falling over a roll of carpet and I ended up having a clot. And so, of course, I go to the loo next and there's blood on the pants and I'm wondering what on earth is going on. And here we go down the road and there I am. I've had a C-section eventually. Okay, so that's the C-section that you can't get out of. I pondered for about 2 months and between events, wondering what I could do. I took the Chinese herbs so I didn't bleed out. I was giving myself acupuncture for the same reason. I was taking more vitamins and minerals because I was really stressed out. And I didn't want a C-section because I was a single mother. I had a massively brain-injured, highly autistic kid who ran away all the time, and her brother who was 3 years older. So I've got an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a newborn in a big house by myself, and I'm going to have a cesarean. Shit. So I wasn't actually keen on that. And so there was nothing really I could do about it. Now, it's not a poor me thing. It's like we all end up in situations we didn't mean to be. So all I can say about that is I learned a lot about being in the body that's been muddled around. And then they really messed me up and I nearly bled out. And, there's stories with all of us. I'm here. Our bodies are really resilient. And because of that, I can say, you actually probably don't need the cesarean, but somebody's going to make their life easier by saying this and giving you stories. I'm not having that conversation at the moment. I'm assuming you have had one. And I'm going to start here. It's a funny place to start. You've had one, you're living in your body, and it's not the body it was before you had the C-section. Now, that might give people pause to think if they think it's the easy way out, because it just isn't.
Let's go there. Let's go. Let's find out what we need to do after C-sections.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about somewhere down the track. So what I notice now, because I'm nearly 65, is that women come to see me who have had abdominal operations and their bodies aren't okay. Now, they think they are because they've gotten used to it, but they actually aren't, because we have adhesions. And it's like, I'll give you a picture on this page, but it's like a glue which is holding things down. And we gradually get more and more over like that. And once I treated one woman's scar, now look, I had been working as I teach acupuncturists for some time with her scar, and she came back later and I did my new work, which is based on the Maya abdominal work and also Jennifer Mercier's work and my own. And I was working really deeply inside her body, on top of her body. And when she got up, she nearly fell over backwards. Yeah, she nearly fell over backwards because she didn't realize how much effort it took to stand upright. Now, this is what I notice when people come to see me. I am teaching people how to do this work because it's an amalgamation of everything I have done for the last 40 years. Because if we have had anything, sometimes even a laparoscopy, we're actually got our body going overdrive to hold everything in, or we've got our uterus in the wrong place and it's held itself there. And we're not aware that the backache, the neck ache, the whatever we've got is now on account of. So just to give a little recap for everybody, I'm going to drag out my teaching tools again. So we've got the soft pelvis and we've got a sacrum. And unfortunately for us, we're not aware of the fact that we do usually have had at least one break on our sacrum. And everybody wants to just run their hand down their back, and I can feel nobble, 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 nobble. It's supposed to be flat. And it's like that. It's like that because we have fallen over, not necessarily on our back. I've fallen on my hips a couple of times and I've actually broken it again because it's got a hinge. And so the point of least resistance so you hit here, and instead of breaking your hip, you might break your sacrum. Good. And so that's then out of place. And if you don't have yourself a whole lot of magnesium, which I use the roll-on because it's the less prickly for everybody, then you're going to have issues. So part of those issues are maybe that when you go to get pregnant, the flows aren't where they should be. And I'll give you a page on me just explaining all the different positions with me and my body and yeah, I can't really do it here, but when you're looking at textbooks, they've got our body looking like this, and there's our ovaries, and there's our tubes, and here's I'm the uterus. It's actually way like that and way like that, and we're not actually looking like that at all. So it's not a cadaver that we're looking at, it's a real woman, and it's in a 90-degree angle. And so that's a bit absurd, isn't it? Because if you're looking, and I'll show you.
Yeah.
The
thing's not just this two-dimensional kind of thing, it's a three-dimensional.
I've got a whole bunch of things. I'm going to try and do it. Imagine I'm like that.
Oh,
okay, so here's my ovaries behind, and instead what you always see is like this.
Yeah.
Well, bullshit, excuse me, but it really isn't the case. And so we've got to look at a woman's body. It's actually real. So if you imagine this is your bladder, which is actually the size of a normal uterus, when she's not filling up with blood, and this is the fill up with blood about to bleed. That's the difference in size. Now, and she sits like, if you imagine that, here's an ovary and here's an ovary behind, then this is the way she sits, and here's the front of the body on top of. So the ovaries are way back here somewhere. Sort of like the silly old testicles that a man has gets hit all the time. Our ovaries would hurt too if we got hit in the ovaries, but we don't, okay? They're inside us. And so there's the top, which is called the fundus, and here's the outside. But if it's fallen over, the poor old bladder is going to want you to go to the toilet every 2 seconds, particularly once it's filled with blood before a period. And until you get the baby coming up, it's a bit of a problem when you are pregnant to start with. Or she might have gone off to the side or off to the side, or over to the back, and that's all sorts of problems because all of the ligaments are held together in the body, and the center of our body is our uterus. Now that is also an unknown fact. So when we've got a baby in there, it's likely that the uterus wasn't in the right spot when we became pregnant. It's likely that we've got all the adhesions, like knotting everything up. And it's likely that we've got some pain somewhere, and people go, oh, it's just your ligament stretching. And I go, hello, here's me in my water again, drink some water. And here's me again going, where's the magnesium? Because without those two, it's a bit of a drama. And where's vitamin D? Same problem, okay?
Yeah.
So coming back to where I've got bits, I've now got my broad ligament. Now this all will become obvious in a minute, don't worry. So if you, I'm going to try and do it in this tiny little space. So this is my broad ligament.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my broad ligament.
Okay.
And this is my ovaries,
mm-hmm.
and this is my tubes,
mm-hmm.
and this is my uterus.
Okay, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
So all of those, and then you've got ligaments, like the round ligament comes out here, and you've got the ovarian suspensory ligament comes out there as well. Now, if you weren't in the right spot when you got pregnant, you're not going to be in the right spot when you are pregnant. And when they take our uterus out of our body to stitch it up again, who knew, after we've had the cesarean, the ligaments are really stretchy because they've had to gone from really tiny to really big in the time that we have been pregnant, which is part of why we have to take the extra nutrients and all the rest of it and make sure that we've got enough exercise and water and all of that. Mm-hmm. So when we have the cesarean, our body is completely put upon because labour possibly didn't start and blah, 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 or we're in a right mess because of blah, blah, or the stories. But there, at the end of it, we've got the uterus out, and the body's going to go, it's mine! And it's going to grab it again, and we're going to have all those adhesions. And those adhesions are going to cause problems. And you might find, as a just feeling my own C-scar, it's not that bad, but gee, I had a problem with that C-scar, and a lot of people do. Yeah. And the cesareans the adhesions are a really big problem. Yes, the scar's a problem, but underneath that, and everything that has been smashed out of place, it's got real problems. And women, besides not having their 40 days of being looked after in our culture, besides not having herbal clay thingies and being bound up and being on the steamer and all of that, we're supposed to get up and do everything just like nobody's business. We just had a major abdominal operation. And of course, we've got our kid, and we might have other kids, and we're making milk. And never mind about us. But when we're older, we go, there's a big problem now because my body isn't working properly. Now, it might be so unwell that we're never going to have another baby. And this happens a lot with women once they've had a C-section. They refuse to have another one because of the drama. Now, it can be undone. But you're going to have to find somebody probably that I've trained, because I'm doing everything at once, because I've had this body and I have had these burning questions. Why is this a problem now? It wasn't before the C-section. I don't hear everybody else complaining about these things. I have been with women long enough to know I've got problems they don't. And so that was me on a quest, okay? So this is me saying, it might be good enough to go to an acupuncturist and put needles in the scalp, but I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be wanting them to do my line across here. I'd be wanting them to have trained up with me. And if this is an acupuncturist watching me, find out more, because it's really amazing what we can do to help women's bodies after they've had a C-section. So now I'm backing out of that and I'm going, so what did I do?
Yeah.
I tried to cope, because everything, as I mentioned, and I was a single mother, and this just played out as it does. I had to make breast milk. I had no money to buy bottles, let alone formula, let alone blah, blah, blah. So if this had to happen, I had really bad infected nipples with candida and cracked, and I had to, I went off the painkillers, thinking that was what was causing him to fall asleep as soon as he got on the breast and not sick. No, it was him. I didn't know he couldn't breastfeed because he'd had everything happen to him. I'd breastfed for 4.5 years before I'd had him. That was alarming. You know, you discover things. This is baby number 4. So I don't know how young mums cope. I was an older mum. I was 40 and I'd done it. The first one was 18 by the time that had happened, and I still didn't know what to do. Okay, but I'd never had a C-section before. I'd worked with a lot of women who had. So I actually ended up putting needles in mine when it was 2 weeks old, because I could feel the adhesions already starting. I could feel that I was going to have a problem.
Oh, where did you put the
in the scar, dear? In the scar. I know. I had to do it myself. It's just, I knew I was going to run into trouble because of what they had to do to get the baby out, and I could see that, you know, who else was going to fix it but me. So it's been an interesting maternal university. So you're talking to the person who's actually lived through a whole lot of stuff I wished I hadn't, to be able to say, right, you need fixing before we go into another baby, before we go into another stage of your life. You actually need to get everything undone from where you find yourself.
So what did you do to heal yourself, Heather, from all of that?
Didn't focus on me because I couldn't. I had a whole lot of other things I had to do that were just awful. And so he was breastfed until he was 18 months old. Yeah. My body did get together. And not only that, nobody talks about diastasis. My diastasis was 4 fingers wide. So 4 fingers wide here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's fine. It's fine now. I didn't do anything to fix it. And if we've got time, I'll talk about that later. I want to stay on the C-section, okay? So the healing after C-section was so much worse than even the massive episiotomy back to my anus that I had for the first one. Okay, I've had all these things happen to be able to say birthing's easier. I did that with one of them. It's a lot easier. And so having the C-section was the hardest thing to recover from out of everything that happened to me. Really, it was. And it's not something I'd be putting my hand up to do. And a lot of people say, oh, it was so lovely, I'm good. It wasn't my experience. And we've all got a whole, you know, like other people think, the way to go. Great, but you've still got a body that still had the uterus popped out. It's still had to be, and all those different layers, it has to be stitched back together again, then popped back in, and blah, 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 blah. So your body needs a hell of a lot more rest, not less. So we've got 40 days, and I'd say probably another 2 weeks on top of if you've had a cesarean. But then that's not being granted to us, so that's not happening. But what they do in other countries is they do this thing called belly binding. Now, I'm going to give you a link on belly binding. I'll just write that down. Hang on, you're going to lose me for a minute. But you'll find at the end of this page, you'll have a whole bunch of things to go and look at. Now, I've found something that's absolutely amazing, which is called a Unina. And it looks like that. And when you look at my Opening the Baby Gate page, under healing after baby, it's all there. Okay, it's just lovely. So I'm not going to talk about that. And I've got women who decades ago had babies, and they are bringing their belly in by wearing that. So it's not immediately after, but if we did that straight after everybody, they would actually not have the gaping belly, they wouldn't have the sore backs, all of that. Okay.
I know, my belly still pops, and I've got a really strong core, but still it'll just pop, it just pops. And I'm not, I'm not that heavy. I'm really very fit and strong, but I've got this poppy little belly.
Okay, and then after that, you wear a faja, which I'm not going to talk about, but you can go onto my page, which I'll direct you to as well.
Fantastic. We'll put all the links below. Hannah, if a mum comes to you and she's had a cesarean and she needs to heal, maybe she even wants to have a vaginal birth after cesarean, like what is the path that you...
That's easy. That's really easy. You undo why C-section happened. So here we go again. We're back to here, and I'm going, actually, you want to be healed and have everything back together again. And yes, I know there are physio bouts, and you want to be in your body intact for a while, because that way, more likely than not, your gut will repair, more likely than not, your blood energy will be there. You'll actually feel strong enough to have another baby, rather than, oh dear, I better have another one. It's like, no, you've actually got to be able to do it. So if somebody comes to me after they've had a C-section, I want to see them as soon as I can, and I'll probably go to them rather than then come to me, because they probably can't poo, they probably can't do a lot of things that everybody takes for granted, and they possibly can't breastfeed because it's actually a lot more difficult. So when they do show up here, then I won't say attack their scar, but I'm going to have to do something about clearing out the likelihood of more adhesions, not less adhesion. So that's a whole nother story. So if somebody comes to me and they want to have a VBAC and they're not pregnant, then I'd be trying to put them on one of my intensives, because there's a whole lot of emotional distress that's happened. And it's huge. And so that's why I put together, it's hopefully I don't drop it, the Welcome Baby Kit. Which is colossal, and I'm not going to go through it because I'll send you a link, okay? And that's just jam-packed full of...
What's in it? Tell us what's in it.
Stuff. Okay, so there's a lid that's got a QR code, so you can put your phone up to it. Oops, and I'm going to have issues.
That's okay. So what, is that like a wrap like you showed us? What's that?
No, I don't have the wrap with it. That's extra. Now look, there's the faja. That's the golden month. Here's the correct pads that you should be wearing. It's got my book, What Dads Can Do, under it. It's got some oil of thieves and amethyst. It's got all sorts of bits and bobs and castor oil. And
this is amazing.
And iodine. It's got everything, moxistic, you name it. And that's what should be happening for women, that they should be given that when they leave work, okay? Everybody's bloody booties and spa treatments and what.
We're going to have to drop ship. We're going to have to sell that on Learning to Birth, and we'll do it drop ship. So like maybe someone buys that, and then like you're going to send it direct to them, okay? We're going to do that. That is so important.
Well, and just by the way, I thought I should do a maternal rescue, and I thought, no, I'll just do women's healing. So that's the women who can't get this. It's got a different but similar version of stuff in that, simply because if you've had endometriosis and they've done all those goddamn surgeries, and now you've got all those adhesions, and it took 3.5 hours to get the baby out with the cesarean, because I've had that happen with somebody, you're not too sure about having another baby, are you? Okay, so the big reason that you're going to have problems after a C-section is because nobody's done the healing. See, so when they're talking about the uterus rupturing, when we're talking about the placental accretion and everything else that's liable to happen, why don't we fix you first? Now, medically they can't, okay? And I'm saying, actually, I've developed a whole program so we can, because I've had to. Now, I can tell you that I work with a community of women in New Zealand, and my poster child, I've called Penny. Now, she had her first baby, and that was a C-section. Now, this is a hilarious story, because this just goes against everything you think you know, okay? So she had really bad hyperemesis linked to hyperemesis, and it's easily fixed. So what happens next for her is she actually ends up having that baby as a C-section, which their culture doesn't do.
Yep.
But she was so disordered from having had this hyperemesis, which is actually low thyroid function, guess what? Needs the iodine that's in the pack,
Yeah.
and vitamin D, which nobody knows about, and we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't even need a C-section. Something like 3 times more likely to have a C-section if your vitamin D levels aren't under a certain level, which is not even an optimal level. Most people don't even have it. So it doesn't matter what the excuse is that you've had the C-section, vitamin D depletion. Oh, let's pretend the sun's dangerous. We're being stupid. So getting back to dear old Penny, I'll call her. She has the first baby. Now she has the next 5 at home because they have them at home. And then it's not happy for her because she has 2 to 3 hours of pushing after 2 to 3 days in labour. No baby gets in position. So we don't even have it dropped, let alone engaged. Okay, so she's done 5 of them after 1 C-section. Did it ever rupture? Right. So she comes to me because she's got horrendous back pain. When she's in pregnancy, she's got horrendous pelvic pain. And so here comes Heather with one of the ebooks, which is Falling to Bits, naturally relieving back pain. And it's got all through it coloured pictures of what to do, okay?
Right.
So this is him going through the what to do, which is all part of the opening the baby gate, go and get all the resources. So she was instructed what to do, and of course she didn't want to do what I suggested because that would mean that they weren't making babies instantly. And normally I'd give you the what dads can do, and it's not here at the moment.
Oh, we saw it in the other interview.
Indeed, and it's at the bottom of that thing there, so I'm not interested in undoing it at the moment. So he went home and he used the moxa, which I haven't got here, and the magnesium, and he got his hands into it. Oh, there's what dads can do. Look, it's holding up the thing so it doesn't make noises for you, fan noises. So what happened for her was she went into the pool because she just felt like it, because they always do water birth. And about 3 or 4 hours into it, she puts her hand between her legs because what's that? And she gives a tiny little push and he shoots out the other side. That's baby number 7 after we've had the moxa, the massage, and the magnesium. Yeah. Right. So that's what I expect to happen. Dad to get his fingers oiled up and be her epidural, because that's the way forward. And I can tell you that everything in this set of resources that I talked about before is what they do at that community now, and they have really easy births. So anyway, she goes off and has a 2-hour labour with, 1 hour labour with it, 2 hours with the next one, 1 with the next one, 18 minutes with the next one, number 10. She'll be having more. She's just on 40. So there we've got the elderly, a multipara, post-cesarean, having her easy babies because she's paying attention to what Heather has said to do. So all of them out there, if they follow what Heather says to do, if the dads sit down and do the moxa, do the massage, blah, blah, they have more sex, they don't have pain. She doesn't have all the health problems she had. It's been tested. And look, it was tested in my clinic, as you discovered when I came to you a long time ago. And I'm saying, here's the answers, people. So if we want to do an easy VBAC and we're pregnant and we come to see me, we do the same stuff. So then on opening the baby gate, you've got Josie's story. Now, Josie came to me after 2 cesareans. She'd had twins the second time round, and she was having her 4th breech. You've got to ask a question, which people don't. Why are all these babies showing up as breech? Right. So the first one, as she says herself, she didn't know any better. They tried to do an external version. Well, you can do that a lot easier if you've used your moxa, and don't even go there. I mean, I've got the instructions. I've got an ebook in those resources which says, fetal positioning solutions, breech solutions, easy birth preparation, how to use moxa. It's all in there, walking men through it in pictures, online. Also, you can print out the charts, because you've got to get somebody, whether it's the him or whether it's your mum or whether it's your midwife, somebody's going to have to do something different, because it's not going to end as well as you would like it if you don't. So if they come to see me, ideally before they have another pregnancy on board, I'm going to try and fix everything at once, which is also their back. It's also their hair falling out afterwards. You name it. It's like, right, you've found me. Yes, it's expensive. It's more expensive if you don't do all of this, because I know what's going to happen in real time. You'd rather it didn't. And I know it works. And so I can actually teach people how to do that. So I've taught them midwives and health workers out there, and they were doing it for each other, because just about every single one of them's had a broken coccyx. I've had mine broken twice. And trying to birth through a just broken in the last 2 weeks coccyx is what some of those women have had to do. So I was teaching them over there last Christmas, and one woman was 3 weeks, no, she was overdue, and she wasn't looking forward to her 6th birth because 1 and 2 were fine. And 3 weeks before she had number 3, she fell down a water slide, bang, onto a rock and broke her coccyx. So baby number 3, she birthed through a just birth coccyx. Number 4 and number 5 were as bad as the 3rd one. And I popped the needle where it needed to go and did the corrections that I can do, because I train people up how to do this. And she came back a week later with her 2-day-old baby in the pusher to thank me, because it was like the first couple of births. It was easy.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so it's actually easy if you know what you're doing. So to get an easy VBAC, it's quite simple. Seriously, you need to get the ingredients. Where's your water? Where's your magnesium? Where's your vitamin D? Where's your protein? And I've got that on Easy Breasts. So instead of putting this, I've put it somewhere else, because look, if our breasts are happy, our body is also. And so there you go. And also you've then got what to do after you've had this thing called a birth, however it's happened. But quite often, as I said, after C-section, they don't tell you. But breastfeeding is really difficult. So then perhaps we should talk about the breech, because Josie ended up with a 2-hour labour, and most of that was in the car.
All right, well, let's definitely talk about breech. Everyone, if you want to, if you've had a cesarean and you're wanting to think about birth vaginally after cesarean, go and check out Heather's Easy Breasts website. We'll have the link below, and check out her programs where she talks about everything that we've just sort of really briefly covered here. And yeah, if we want to dive into breech, I don't know, is that terrible to say? I don't know.
No, we'll do that next. We'll
just dive into breech, and we'll discuss how we get out of breech, or what we do with breech, or whatever. And maybe tell people what breech is. Maybe someone listening here doesn't even know what breech is.
Oh, look at that. I've just gone into my my kit, and I found my trusty Moxa stick, okay?
Moxa. See, okay. Heather, you've got everything there. It's all there.
I call myself Lady Abundance. You just have to ask, and I've probably got it. So a Moxa stick has to look like that. It's not to be the charcoal smokeless one. It's not going to do the same job. Now, you have to go outside, and you're not going to use it on your toe. That's bullshit. And I'm the person who teaches people internationally how to do a better job as an acupuncturist, okay? That is ridiculous. You cannot decorate a cake you haven't baked or iced yet. So let's just get real. Do we need to do that? I almost never do it. I didn't do it with Josie. It's not
Moxa on the toe, or
the Moxa on the toe. That's a dumb idea. It might work. I'm just saying it might work, but it also might not, because we all sit back, don't we? We lounge back. Right, so the baby's going to get into OP even if you do turn it around. Mm-hmm. So
optimal position. OP is optimal position. Do you want to show us?
No. OP is not. OP is occiput posterior, which means the baby's sunny side up and the baby's looking out instead of looking back to you.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's going to cause all sorts of connections, and invariably, if you do turn a breech, it's going to go to OP. So you're going to get to, if you're lucky, 7 centimeters dilated and have a birth from hell, and then it's stuck because you need another 2 centimeters or is it inches? I think it's centimeters to get the baby out because it's in the wrong spot. And I'm not set up to show you that, but the baby has to be. And people argue. I go, just stop arguing. The people who came to me over the decades to have an induction were doing that because the baby was in the wrong bloody position. Not breech, it was lying on the wrong side. Look, for most of us, white women, we've got to have the baby's back here, kicking over here, and then it's got to turn around and come out like that. It's just the way of it. And here we go back to the structure and the ligaments, and is the coccyx broken and all of that, okay? And I have been at births because I used to work as a doula before they existed. And so I was using Bach flower remedies and my fingers, hardly any needles. And what was going on for everybody who think they need an induction is they don't. The baby doesn't want to come yet, or they've got a whole lot of cold in there because they've been icing their pubic symphysis because the physio has told them to do that. Cold is not your friend. Or the baby is just not due because it's going to take 46 weeks because you're so sick in the middle of the pregnancy that the baby was on hold and now they've got it, you know, that can happen. Because it is a bell curve and people forgot 30, 32 and 46, that's still within the realm of normal. Let's go in the middle and call it, shall we, 40 weeks. Bad idea, because anyway, somebody's probably talked about due. Look,
no one's talked about due dates yet. I mean, that is an important issue. I wouldn't tell anyone where I was due the first time. I didn't want any pressure on me. I mean, obviously me and my care provider knew, but apart from that, I wouldn't tell anyone. And it's sort of more like a guess date, because my background obviously was, you know, anthropology, archaeology, growing up on a farm, and I understand about evolution, and it's all a continuum. You know, we're meant to have our babies initially had that extra 3 months anyway. So, you know, every genetics is different, where our babies are ripening in different rates. So but no one yet really has talked about that on this series. So you're welcome to
I'm going to insert it right here because it annoys the hell out of me. Because acupuncturists go, oh, I tried an induction. I go, don't go there. You are forcing what is not supposed to happen. You need to ask a different question. Why is the baby not here yet? Because it's not ready. It doesn't want to breathe. Mum's not ready. She's got to get over her hating the fact that the mother-in-law is going to come, or the mother-in-law's got to come and go, and it's going to take another 3 weeks because she's not going to. Look, I had one student acupuncturist, and she said she was her mother's number one, and she was born at 46 weeks because her mother was in the middle of carving, and she told that baby to stay where it was, and it did. Okay. So I think we've got to get a bit of a giggle over this. It's called when we're ready and when the baby's ready. And if people are telling us, and we're getting too old, you know, we've got to have a C-section or induction because we're 40, so what? Just so what? That's irrelevant. What is relevant is the state of the oven. Is it cooking at the right temperature? No. Is it even got the right ingredients? No. Is everything in the right place? No. So how can it come right now? And if you induce, all you're going to do is cause a catastrophe likely. And so here we are having a cesarean. And we're having a cesarean. See, I'm drinking water. The rest of you should be drinking water at the same time. Just saying, we actually have run on ingredients, and it's bottoms up time again. Mm-hmm. So if we've got somebody jumping up and down saying we need an induction, I'll give you something to watch on TEDx called Show Me the Data. Mm-hmm. Look, I have done so much research because I go around the world teaching acupuncturists how to be better at it. And I got to say that they want to follow the medical model because that's how they've been trained. And they get a bit upset at me because I'm going to be holding what I call your left-hand side of the page, which is the witch. Hello, witches. They were all burnt at stake. Some of us are still here. And we're saying, hang on a minute, what does nature say? It doesn't say what you're doing. So if the baby is breech, it might be like one of my friends, the kid's cord was around its neck 5 times. She was trying to do a home birth. The home birth midwife could not pull him down. That's good. So she ended up in the hospital with a cesarean, and that little clamp that they put on the cord fell off. There was nothing off the cord. Now, look, he's a really bright kid. He had no brain damage. It was obviously not his story. She had the next one as birth, and the next one was another cesarean. So in between baby number 2 and 3, I cleaned up that scar, and she still needed to have another cesarean for a different reason. And I did that again, and I did all of the work again, because if we don't, we end up with a body that's broken.
I mean, from my perspective, you know, I come from an energetic model. I grew up in a medical family, but you know, acupuncture has thousands of years of history, but it's within the energy model. So it's kind of weird to me that it's trying to fit into the medicine model, because it's more like the medicine model needs to fit in the energy model. It's kind of like the other way around, really.
Well, you get it, but they don't. And by the time they've gone through that 4-year course and got a 60,000 hex debt, and they've been taught to listen to the doctors 100%, they've been trained according to medicine in China, which is called TCM. They've come out through a medicalized model, and there's one person who's traveling around the world going, do it the way I'm doing it, which is from how she was teaching midwives how to do what I'd call dry needling, which is we haven't got all the theory, but we're just going to treat the condition. You can't. The condition isn't a condition. The condition is you've got karma, if you like, your soul script. You've got your actual personality and what it believes with what we've all been programmed. And then we've got the body. I'm after this one and that one in the middle. I'm going to shut my ears. And anybody with half a brain should be doing the same thing. And so when we're talking about acupuncture, and I don't like to keep saying this, but unless you get my stuff and unless you actually try and find somebody I've trained, you're going to run into trouble. Just the same as a lot of midwives are doing what they've been told to do, and they're not allowed to not do it any differently. But it's not the way a midwife from anywhere else would be doing what they're doing. So I'm not talking about moxering your little toe. I'm talking about undoing why the baby is presenting breech.
And so what sort of things will you look at a mum? Like what sort of things will you, if a mum comes to you with breech, what sort of things do you investigate for her?
I pull the cold out of her belly to start with. Yeah. And I've got an online kit. Anybody can do that, because if your yang energy is not there, it's not going to hold baby in the right place. It's not going to hold your food in the right place. It's not going to hold your blood together. You know, we've got to have enough energy at the end of this to be making good quality blood energy to be feeding the baby. So what we need to be doing is starting at the beginning, you know, like where nobody else does. I start way down there, not interested in your breech. So going back to Josie on opening the baby gate, she kept on saying she wanted a feedback, and I said, yes, I understand, but you're in no state for us to be talking about that at the moment. I've got to sort out why you got help in the last one, why you've got itchy hot legs and feet, why you're only wanting to eat ice. Like there's all of these things that had to happen. She had bleeding that started off the twins coming out, I think, I don't know, 35 weeks, plus she had really high blood pressure and blah, blah, like went on and on and on and on, the problems she had in the last pregnancy. And I needed to get her past that. And she became very quickly the most well she'd ever been in her life, not just in pregnancy. All of the pain went, like everything went. And eventually I got to doing that thing called, now we're going to open the baby gate. And in her case, look, her coccyx is bent right under, and I had her midwife, who was acting as a doula in this case, and she had never felt down there before on anybody. It's not in their training. And I thought, we need to do a site called Opening the Baby Gate, which is why we've got it, because that explains why everybody stands back and going, it should be finished, it should be right, it should be this and that. Your mother had a good birth, you were fine last time. Now it's not fine. We have to ask a question, why? So I'm not going to try and turn a baby around because it knows it should be there. I want to make it uncomfortable so the baby goes to where it should be. Yeah. I do, but again, that should word is only should be according to that middle circle, which is the men saying it has to be like this or else. Quite often that's the safest place for the baby to be born, which is breech, and leave the mum alone. You know, and that's where Maggie Banks has written all of her stuff on, you know, hands off the breech. Like, we need to get serious about this. I know we're in this context, but we make so many problems for women whose first baby was a breech because they were told they had to have it. And both of those women I've spoken about, they didn't know that well, the first one, she wouldn't have been strong enough to birth at all, but that's not the point. The point is that if we've got a baby breech, it's normal. It's just a part of normal. Why are we trying to turn it around? It's going to probably turn back again because we haven't undone the instructions, which is to go that way. Now, you understand that? I understand that. When I say it like that, most do, except the medically involved people. And then they want to do this thing called, we've got to have a cesarean. And I'm going, you don't have to live in that body for the rest of that person's life. You don't have to listen that she's a high risk to have a normal birth. You don't have to be the person who can't breastfeed properly. Like, and some women die. And 1 in 350 women lose their uterus during a damn cesarean. Now, you don't know that. You're not told that. Okay? No, that's not good enough. None of this is good enough. And so that's why I can sound a bit passionate sometimes. So if somebody comes to me and they've got a breech baby, I go, so what? And if it's due now, so what? It can still turn. They turn when they feel like it. They can flip around. More than the point is it going to create a knot in the cord and strangle itself? And I've had that happen with people who've gone off and had their babies turned and the kid's being strangled. Like, what do we think we're doing? The baby's in the place it feels most comfortable in. Now, if she's got a bicornate uterus, which is sort of like a heart shape, which is what other mammals have, they've got horns to it and we don't, then maybe the baby's like this. And maybe the only way it can come is the way it's presenting. And is it safe? I don't know. Depends on the degree of the septum. And so that's something for the woman to talk with somebody who's actually thinking sensibly, and most are not. Most are telling everybody you can't, you can't, you can't, rather than let's see what we can undo. So Josie had her 2-hour, mostly in the car, labour. And she had the baby come out the way it went in. And that was that fourth child, 2 cesareans, really easy. It's not that difficult. I've done that with women who had 3 cesareans before and 4, but it's called undo it. Yes. You know, there was a reason that it, and it's more now because it's bound up. You know, we've got the adhesions, we've got the ligaments distressed, we've got her upset, we need to undo it. So that's the breach. It's quite easy to sort out if we stop seeing it as a problem and if we actually let nature do its thing. And we're helping it because we've got our resources and we've got our moxa, but we're not using it on the big toe. So imagine this is your little toe, and this is what you're doing. Well, don't. Just that's actually the point that you use to build up your milk supply. There's a reason this is in the welcome baby kit. See, you actually need to do it here, which is right in the middle there, and you go tap 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 because it's too hot. And you can do this. You can do them yourself, and you've got it there, okay. And you can do it on the side of your leg as well. So that's all there in the resources section. So mostly you've got to wait for somebody to help yourself. So if you are going to want to help yourself with a breach and you do think you want to use a moxa stick, it's on your back. And I've got the site Fingertip Rescues, and if you go to Fingertip Rescues, I'd direct you back to my resources because you're going to want to know more than that. But the point of you actually don't worry about the breach. You want to worry about the fact that now it's going to be OP, which is not optimal position. It's occiput presenting, basically.
Don't listen to me. I'm not the expert. I'm just a mum.
I could say I'm just a mum too. I've watched when people run into trouble at birthing, it's because it was OP to start with, or ROA, right occiput anterior. It's only a quarter of a turn to being in the wrong spot. And people go, it'll be fine. It's not. And then we have the birth from hell, or the labour from hell, ending up with the emergency cesarean. Well, why didn't we get the baby in the right spot? So then we have, where's my rebozo? We will pretend, rebozo, sifting. Imagine, geez, I don't know. Imagine this uterus, if it doesn't fall out, except mum's over the bed and it's her belly that's being sifted. I have, Yvonne, my amazing midwife, turned a baby from breech in labour to a normal head down, out into mum's arms in 45 minutes by rebozoing all through for 45 minutes, no stop, and the baby shifted. So why aren't we going back to women's ways?
That's incredible. See, I don't know anything about rebozo. Rebozo, like obviously when I had my babies 6 years ago, rebozo wasn't a common thing in our culture. I'd never heard of it. I've only really heard of it coming into it again, you know, doing these webinars. And you're really probably like one of the first people to bring it up in these webinars, you know. So that's amazing that I didn't know what it was for. Like, I was like, what is it? Just like pain relief? What is it?
No. And in fact, look, you can use it. You can use a sarong. You can use a big towel. You can use anything. Rebozo is, as I showed you in the last one, a very brightly coloured, something from Guatemala or Belize or somewhere. That's the width of their loom. And this is what they hold their babies in and all the rest of it. And it's Mexican for shawl. This is just called shawl, okay? Rebozo, shawl. But you can use it to hold babies in, to undo backache, to just do all sorts of things, you know? So you need to look up rebozo.
Yeah.
I'll put this down here as well. So we've got the woman out of breech and now she's having a birth, but the baby's OP. Back to Heather's kit and rebozo.
Beautiful. Is that everything you want to say today, Heather? No.
I've just covered it up with my thingy here. But just a minute. I'm going to disappear and see what I've got on my...
That's all right.
My thing here. We've gone whizzing through everything.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to talk about next is breasts are best.
Okay, let's do breast is best.
Because we're not allowed to say this because it's politically incorrect and we might upset the people who couldn't breastfeed well. I have had rather a few trying circumstances with my own breastfeeding, and by the time this comes to air, I will have the page up, which is other women's stories, because I got so pissed off with what's going on that I decided I'd look around me at all the women my age, because we were all vehement breastfeeders. We were not going to put a thing in our bodies that shouldn't have been there, because it was too close to, see, my eldest is 42 now. It was too close to thalidomide. It was too close to Debendox, which you probably don't know about, and diethylstilbestrone. You probably don't know about the other two, and you've probably heard about thalidomide, right?
Yeah.
Well, in times to come, it'll be vaccinating during pregnancy, fetal scanning during pregnancy, inducing, and every other stupid damn thing we're doing, okay? And look, you've got to remember that doctors used to condone smoking and say that would help you. And in fact, when people were depressed, they'd hand them a packet of cigarettes and say, start smoking. Okay.
You know what my doctor told me? This was before I saw you, I think, a few months before I saw you. You know, I was in so much pain. And I went to the doctor, right? And I was crippled, you know, just so many things wrong. And he was like, one, none of this is real. You're just a hypochondriac and you're making this up. And two, this is all just you being depressed. Obviously you're sad. See, obviously you're sad because
lack of vitamin D and magnesium again. Same answers. Oh dear, you've frozen up, and so I can't hear you talking. Oh dear, how long is this going to be? I'm going to keep on talking and hope you can sort this out. So what I'd say, if a doctor has told you that you're sad, it's because you haven't got enough iodine on your body and in your body, because your body needs twice as much when you're pregnant and breastfeeding, and 6 times more than a man anyway. And so what are they doing about ingredients? And that's where I was going to go to when we're talking about this thing called we need to breastfeed. Then we don't have enough vitamin D, so the whole hormonal situation's not working. Then we don't have enough of the magnesium, and it's no good saying I'm taking a pill. So when somebody is depressed, because quite often people are depressed when they are pregnant, and when they are pregnant, it's because they haven't undone everything that should have happened. And so in order to sort that out, we need to go somewhere else, which is, what would your grandmother do? She'd stop you from working. She'd stop you from freaking out about everything, and she'd feed you up on broths and heaven knows what. And at the end of that, she'd be looking after you and making sure that you didn't go outside, you didn't put ice on yourself, you didn't do anything you shouldn't have done. And so at the end of that process, you'd have a happier person birthing, most likely birthing easily, most likely not needing a cesarean, even if she did have a breech. And not only that, she's probably going to be able to breastfeed well. So if we can't breastfeed well, as I said before, we've got this thing called amoxicillin, and we can moxa that little point called small intestine 1 on our finger. Gets too hot, take it, it's lit, obviously, I haven't got it lit here. It gets too hot, we're not touching it, see, I've got my finger like that. Too hot, take it away, too hot, take it away. I did it with myself. This breast used to be out like this, and this one you could flop up and down. You might have had a problem like that yourself. So I'd only do this one because that one didn't need any more milk, thank you very much, and this one needed to build it up. And I'd do the point in there as well, and that's in my stuff. And you need to be undoing across here and massaging across your back, and somebody looking after you better. Okay, so the long and the short of most people's breastfeeding problems is you actually have breasts, they would work and they can't. So like with the breech, why can't they work? Now in my case, and a lot of people's case, after you've had a C-section, you actually can no longer do this thing called breastfeeding. Because the baby's out of it, you're in so much pain, you're in so much medication, and your body's under so much shock because of what happened to you. So what to do next? Yeah, call for help and fix it. And be aware that most people are going to have a different version than what I might say around breastfeeding. And what worked for me and my 4 kids is due to the fact that I had to think, because I knew my kids couldn't be given formula because they were going to be highly allergic to anything I gave them. And so I had to do it myself. And I did. And I had one child nearly dead in intensive care and isolation, and I still made breast milk. It is possible. I was having at least 20 vitamin B complex over a 24-hour period, and my urine did not change colour. That is how stressed you get. Nobody's paying attention. You need ingredients to make breast milk. You need ingredients to do anything. And if we don't have them, we can't make the breast milk. We can't make a good baby. We can't be sane at the end of it. Our blood energy is not as it should be. And altogether, we're in trouble. So this is quite simple. Download resources. Do an awful lot of cooking before you actually have the baby. Start a meal train of some description. Because if you do that, at least you've got the ingredients likely covered. Then you need to rest. So now you've got to have this thing called a golden month. And please go and find anybody who can help you with this. And if you haven't got a partner that understands this, go and get his mum to talk to him or something, because she had babies. We all know we need mothering ourselves. To mother well, we need to be mothered. And at the end of all of this, I'd say go well, because we started with caesareans and how they happen and why we might not want one. So I'm going to go back just briefly to what do you do if you do need a caesarean. Now, this is a little story that I got because I quite often go to international midwives conventions, and my dear friend Vicky Chan, was one of the speakers, and we were all waiting to see this amazing video footage of her in a lovely home birth, and instead she was in the green hospital scrubs and we were about to see a C-section. It's an interesting story, okay? Now, this C-section is a C-section you have when you can't avoid having a C-section. And because Vicky was going to be filming at the hospital she was working in that day, she discovered on her list was somebody having a C-section. So she asked the woman, did she mind? And she didn't mind. And so Vicky asked her, what would she like? And she said, it's your film, do what you like. And she said, no, it's your birth. What would you like? And so gradually she got out of her that in the other births that she'd had, and this was her third C-section, she didn't like what was going on. She wanted everybody to introduce themselves. She wanted to know what they were doing in the room. They wanted to be focused on their job and not talking about, the cricket or whatever. She wanted to find out the sex of the baby herself, because this is in the time when we didn't find out. And although she'd never breastfed before and thought it was a disgusting idea, she got talked into, because this is Vicky's story, getting her to breastfeed if the baby wanted. So it comes to pass that we're watching this movie and we can see so imagine I'm the mother and you're watching, okay, so you're watching me and she's watching this baby. Oh, isn't he beautiful? And the man, the husband goes, what have you done with my wife? Because she hates babies. She was only having a baby to see if she could get a girl this time, and she didn't. She got another boy. She didn't care. And he was allowed to come up her belly and jump onto the nipple. Oh, he's on my nipple. Yeah. Now, the problem they would have had at home is that she was bonded as a primate to the last one and as a mother to the first two. Now, as a mother, I can grieve that for her, because I've had the same thing happen for me. The most important thing I think that can ever happen in your life as a birthing mother is to be bonded with that baby, however it comes out at the other end. So if you are going to be put through a cesarean, because like me, you had to, otherwise you might have died, that's okay. And you want to be bonded to the baby when it comes. So that means it's going to come straight out of you and onto you. And if it needs resuscitating, it's got a cord. They're not to cut it. Let's be reasonable here. We're mammals. See down there? And if we're not going to be with that baby, and see, here's me getting all maternal, and it's mine. And if you're not going to do that, breastfeeding's not good. And now I can't hear you. Hello? I can't hear you. You're mute.
Now you can hear me. Now you can hear me. Internet crashed.
I hope you got all that, because I just gave them the cesarean they need if they know they have to have one.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's still recording, so we're all good, Heather.
That's just wonderful, because where I was about to go with that is embrace whatever happens. The most important thing is you're bonded to the baby at the other end, and if you can't breastfeed, oh well. However, there's so many things that you could do that you don't know about. And let's get excited about the fact that we're going to bring another most loved person into the world, and to do that we have to be looked after. And to have a cesarean is not the end of the world. To not be able to breastfeed is not the end of the world. To have a breech is not the end of the world. I've had a massively brain injured kid, and that is, I'd rather she died. Now, you didn't think I was going to come out with that, and it just popped out. She's 32 and still in nappies. So I know what they're going to warn you against. Well, guess what? I'm still here. I've lived through it. It's just made me more of a damn warrior. Because if we're not going to look after our womb, if we're not going to look after our wombs, if we're not going to look after our women's bits, this is what we get. And we don't want it. So them's fighting words. Go and get my resources, sort it out. And if you are a practitioner yourself, Dan will go and learn the stuff, because we shouldn't be listening to what the doctors let us to do. We shouldn't.
I'm just, the thing is that I really appreciate about you, Heather, is that you're straight talking and you have lived it. I mean, you've lived it. So it's not just your words out of your mouth. You've lived it in your own life. You've helped real people in real ways. And you're talking from a place of, this is my experience and this is my truth, and if you don't like it, damn, I'll get over it because I've lived it, And I think that's something, that a quality that we all really can embrace more in our lives. And, if it's however hard the honesty is, if it's real for us, that is simply us being honest. And you're very, very honest in your assistance to birth and birthing mums and all your books and resources. It's about the honest truth of this stuff. It's real. It's going to take work. It's going to take you learning something. It's going to take you being passionate about wanting to be healthy. But, guess what? You can do it,
Yeah. and look, there's me saying I've got a 32-year-old massively brain injured kid. Vaccination damage as well. Let's just pop that in. And so when people say, oh, but Heather, you can't say that, I go, you want to watch it around me, because I'm an ex-vaccine mother. And I know the damage I'm seeing walking in the door because they have done what they have been told to do. If I don't normally have my pointy finger, when I've got my pointy finger out, watch out, because I've now got my crone hat on. And get real. This is not what we are supposed to be doing. We are supposed to be making babies easily, naturally. And if we aren't doing it, there's a problem. Go back to the structure and the ingredients. If we're not going to birth them properly, and properly is a very loaded word and some people might get triggered. I know. I only actually pushed one of mine out. I get it. I had 3 of mine either cut out of me or hauled out of me. I know. And I can tell you the bonding I had with that baby is not what I had with any of the others. And, I could burst into tears at this point, because it's horrible knowing when you have your second baby what the first one didn't get. It's horrible. Yes. It's horrible. And when I've been in front of midwives teaching this, they're bursting into tears telling me their own stories, because they know, because that's happened to them too. And so please, if you are triggered, accept it. Go and look at what I've put on this page called Luster Bowls, and you can make yourself a fairy bowl and you can sprinkle flower water all over yourself. Like, there are always something you can do to help yourself.
I think that's a really good idea. Let's put trigger warning in front of this video, because I'm going to say something. I don't know if I saw you before or after this. I can't remember how everything flowed out. But, I was a delayed vaxxer with both my babies, didn't vaccinate at birth. But my first son, he was probably 4 months old. He'd already had a really rough trot for a lot of different reasons. And we vaccinated him for the first time. I don't think it was all of them. There was some we didn't do. There was just some we were vaccinating him for. And he actually stopped breathing. He went blue and stopped breathing. I thought my baby had died. I held him in my arms and I called him back to me. I was like, you're not dying on me, kiddo. I don't know how long he stopped breathing for, but, it was enough that it was seriously concerning. I called my partner. I did everything, and he breathed again. Obviously, he's here today.
This is you at home. This is you.
Yeah, this was me at home after about half an hour after the vaccinations. He stopped breathing, went blue. It's called floppy baby syndrome. Anyway,
dead
baby. Anyway, I was like, you're coming back, baby. You're coming back. And my partner and I, we drove back to the doctor's. So this is like an hour later. And because he came home or whatever it was, I don't know how it happened. And the doctor was like, look, because we were like, this is obviously the vaccination. Can we report this so that they know the stats here? And the doctor said, no, that's not on the list of things that can, like, what's it called? The side effects. That's not on the side effects. That never happened. That wasn't the vaccination. Now, I'm neither pro or against vaccination. You've got to do what's right for you and your family. My children are all now mostly vaccinated, but that story was real for me, and I thought my baby was going to die. In that moment, I thought my child was dead, So.
I do know. And what is on that list is SIDS, and what is that on that list is dead. And what is that on that list that we are never shown is why you should be really concerned. And I'm sorry you're now crying, because quite frankly, I can do the same thing, because I thought I was doing the right thing. When she was 4.5 years old, she got given the MMR injection and she was already brain injured, and I nearly had her out of that, and then I lost her forever. And here she is, not the child I had rescued. And you can hear this story again and again and again and again. And it's not okay that we can sit down and go, we're not going to talk about that. Go, yeah. And so you didn't know, and you wouldn't have done that had you done that. And I thought that there was a safe time to vaccinate, and I vaccinated my last at 12.5 years old for one thing, and two things at 13.5. And guess what? His vaccination damaged. And everything that buggered up, quite frankly, after that was after then. Now, I thought I was doing it right on my schedule. I thought I was right by leaving it till he was that old. Pointy finger again, wrong. Some of us should never go near things that are not natural. So I take everybody back to the bottom circle. We've got middle circle arguments and we've got bottom circle. And I'm in the bottom circle and I'm in the top circle, because the top circle, I needed to go through all of that. And you needed to go through that. And the people watching, if they're going to get upset, whatever. We're upset enough for everybody, because we've had to live these things, and we've had to watch other people, like my grandchildren being vaccinated and they're not okay. And what can I do about this? I'm not going to be in anybody's face. I'm just going to say, this is the mechanism, and I'm going to put more down there so you can go and sort it out yourself. We're talking about cesarean sections, and I'm going to say something else about that, because sometimes it's because all of a sudden your body can't work properly because you've gone and vaccinated, and the magnesium and the iodine are no longer being seen by your body. And so you've got all these problems that you didn't have before. And unless you pull out what shouldn't have been there, which is damn tricky, it can be done, and it's damn tricky, you're going to be a different person for the rest of your life. And it is possible. And there's people like me out here who can help. And we can sound impassioned, because both you and I are doing what we're doing because we have been touched.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Heather, for being here and sharing everything. And the world, like, obviously, hopefully everyone listening, wherever you are in the world, come and visit Heather's website and download her materials, and we'll definitely we'll get those boxes, doing some drop shipping so that everyone can, who comes to the website can access those as well, I hope. And Heather, where are you teaching in the world next? Have you got anywhere that you're going to go? Are you just in Australia, or what's happening?
Well, at the moment you're talking to me in October in Australia. No, it's September. So I'm doing more trainings here until the end of the year. And then I'll be over the way in my house in New Zealand with a healing centre there. And I don't plan to do anything but garden. And I'll still be writing courses, okay? And then when I come back, I don't know. I went up and down the globe 4 times last year. I don't know. I'll be teaching online, but doing face-to-face is my passion. And teaching birth workers, birth advocates, body workers, as well as acupuncturists, what they can do to open the baby gate is really my passion.
And how do people follow you again online, Heather? Where do they go to?
Look, I'm not on Instagram. I'm too old. Okay, Facebook is the way to do it. And like, I look like this. And I've got another one called easybabies.com.au. And I know that's a strange name for a Facebook thing. It's the same as my Easy Babies site, and I've got about 20 sites. Now, this is because, I talked about safe menstrual care. We didn't even get into that, just quietly. These pads, the night pads, they hold about 150 mils. Hello, We can always put, and we've got maxi ones for maternity. We can, and I've got all of the demos. I'll put you the link there. You can actually get an incontinence sort of pad that's got the elasticizing, which goes up against our body. Stick one of these inside, which are really little, and you don't leak. They're not cold. They're never wet. And they don't allow you to get candida or smells or bacteria because they're always dry. They're called dry on. Why are we doing anything but? And the panty liners, well, you get one of them, you cut it in half, you whack it there, and you whack it there inside your breast. Hey, guess what? You don't have those nasty Johnson & Johnson, because they've been bleached, and that's called dioxins coming back into your body. You don't need that. And if you've got macerated nipples, if you've got candida, mastitis, excuse me, but it's fixable in the kit, you know, or go and get your own box of them. I mean, really, there's answers. I've gone off and I've found these damn things because it's not good enough. You know, like I run into a problem and I go, this shouldn't be happening. This is for one of my patients. And I'm going, well, I don't know why it is. Then I found the vaccination problem. So we're pretending we've had that conversation. And I'm going, well, what else are we going to do? Because she can't just wander off like that.
Yeah.
So you never know where I'm going to go next with what I'm going to say.
No, we don't. Look, I'm the same. Left to my own devices, I'll ramble on about all sorts of crazy things that just make people go, "Woo, never heard that before." So anyway, thank you, Heather. Been great talking to you. I can't wait to get up to Queensland sometime and come and see you and say hello. And I know that whenever I talk to you online, it seems like you're about to go to somewhere else and do another training. So it's really great to have caught you and have this time together.
In my steaming room, which we never mentioned. In my steaming room.
Yeah. If you want to find out about vaginal steaming, that's all in Heather's other video.
The last one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching Learning to Birth.
Thank you.